Hello and welcome to this tutorial on Lokalise. Today we are going to learn how to download your translation files from our translation management system. First of all, let's see how to deal with web and mobile projects, so the projects that work with key-based translation files. Well, to get started, let's proceed to the download page, and here you might see a warning regarding some quality assurance issues. Basically, it's not an error, it's just a reminder that you might want to review or verify your strings. You can press on these numbers here to view the corresponding keys, but well, in most cases, it's quite safe to ignore it. Now, in the file format drop-down menu, you can select file export formats. We support lots and lots of different formats that you can choose from, but it is important to understand one concept, and this concept is related to platforms, because every translation key that you create on Lokalise can be assigned to one or multiple platforms, and those are iOS, Android, web, and other. And so you can see here in this example that all my translation keys are assigned to the web platform, because initially I've uploaded JSON files, and as long as JSON is typically used for web, well, those keys were assigned to the web platform. You can also view all the platforms here in this dropdown, and it is possible to assign a single key to multiple platforms. On top of that, well, if you do something like this, you can proceed to the Advanced tab and assign this key to a different file based on its platform. So for web, this is going to be assigned to admin lang ISO JSON. For Android, we can choose to assign to one of these files, or we can even enter a new file name by doing something like that. So now you save the changes, and you can see that we have two platforms, plus we have two different file names. Well, we're going to cover those file names a bit later. So the bottom line of this story is that if you proceed to the download page and choose the file format, please be aware about the platform that this file format is related to. So for web, we have these formats, and maybe for Android, we have only XML and properties files, which means that if, for example, you choose the XML format, it means that by default, only the keys that were assigned to the Android platform will be included in your download bundle. Let's click preview to prove that, and we can see that only a single key has been exported with our settings. Why? Well, because in our editor, only this admin page key has been assigned to the Android platform. All other keys were unassigned to this platform, and these were not included in the download bundle. Therefore, if you want to include these keys for Android, you have two options. You can either link those to the Android platform, or on the download page, you can tick include all platform keys. So in this case, it will export all keys regardless of their platform. Sometimes it might be beneficial, but you may end up with like too many keys that are irrelevant for your specific bundle. But in this case, now we can see that all the keys have been indeed added. Therefore, pay close attention to what you are choosing here in this drop-down. Okay, so let's choose JSON and let's move on. Then you can pick one or multiple languages to include into the bundle. This number here specifies, well, the percentage of the translated strings, so it means that all the languages are indeed fully translated. You can pick one or multiple languages, and also here you can adjust the language code. This language code is quite important when we're working with the lang ISO placeholder, because this placeholder will be replaced with a specific locale for a given language when you are going to download your strings. For instance, here we say en, and we say that the lang ISO should be a part of the file name. So here is the example. And if I say preview, then we can see that it says en right here. But you can say maybe en underscore us. You can save the changes, say preview again, and ta-da, you can see that the locale has been configured for us. Of course, you can configure this locale in the editor itself for a language, but maybe you don't want to modify the language code here on Lokalise. Maybe you would like to modify it only for the download. Well, in that case, you can change this value. Okay, let's move on to the file structure section. By default, it says one file per language, and it means that all your translations will be separated by their language and placed into a single file. Here you can modify the output structure. So it means that we have the folder called locale, and then inside that locale, we create files that have lang ISO placeholder, for example, en, and then their format. So of course it depends on the format that you choose here. It means that for like 3 languages, we're going to have 3 translation files named according to this pattern. Let's click preview to prove that, and indeed here is the folder, and here are our translation files. In this case, if you choose this option, it doesn't really matter what file names you have here for your translation keys. So these file names will be effectively ignored. If you would like to utilize those file names and split your translation keys based on these file names, then on the download page, you should pick multiple files per language. Use assigned file names, okay? In that case, you can provide only the directory prefix. It means that, for example, the en translations will be hosted under the en folder, then for French you will use fr, etc. And inside that folder, you will create multiple translation files according to the file names that you have assigned previously. So let's hit preview, and we're going to see that we have 3 different folders, and every folder contains 2 files, right? So now we are utilizing the assigned file names. But you should be aware that if some translation key was not assigned to any file at all, maybe we say don't assign this to any file, this greeting user, it means that this key will go to a special file that is called no file name. So this is the literal name. Let's hit preview, and now we get this no file name with a single key. So if you see that file in your download bundle, it means that some keys do not have any file names, which might be okay in your case, but you might want to look into it. Now let's proceed to the content to export section. First of all, the data. So the data that you would like to download. By default, it says all, so we are going to export all translation keys, well, of course, according to the file format and to the platform that we have chosen here in this dropdown. Well, other options are pretty much self-explanatory, maybe except for the last reviewed strings. So what does it mean? Well, let me show you an example. Suppose we have this value, welcome to the app, and I am reviewing all these entries, and then I can pick last reviewed strings. I hit preview, and indeed I see welcome to the app. It is important to mention that only a single key has been added to the download bundle. Why? Well, because all other translation keys were never reviewed. Currently, they are unreviewed at all. That's why we don't see those. So that's thing number 1. And thing number 2 is that if I change this to maybe, I don't know, include this exclamation mark, now these translations become unreviewed once again. If I return to the download page, and hit preview, I can see that the previous version of this translation has been exported for me, because this is the last version that has been reviewed. Then you can choose to include or exclude some tags. Well, the tags are assigned here. Maybe you can provide multiple tags in the following way, and now you can pick those tags here. Then as for the file name, you can choose one or multiple files to include into the download bundle. Then this option, custom translation status, you will see this option available only if you have enabled custom translation statuses in the project settings right here. So this option should be enabled, and you can create one or multiple statuses. These statuses are basically assigned by pressing on this white circle. You can maybe hit approved, and then you can choose to download only the values that have been maybe approved. Let's proceed to the advanced settings. Well, those settings might vary depending on the file format that you have chosen, but let's briefly discuss those. First of all, they don't use directory prefix. This option will appear only if you have chosen multiple files per language. So if you choose one file per language, this option won't appear at all. So what this option does, basically, if it is checked, then this directory prefix specified in this text input won't have any effect at all. It will be ignored. So let's check this option and hit preview. And we can see that now all the files are stored in a single folder. If you uncheck this option, then all your files will be nested under separate directories, as can be seen here. So that's the idea. Now, disable referencing. This option makes sense if you use any referencing at all. So what is referencing? Let me show you a quick example. For instance, I have this logout button and I have this logout. Perhaps maybe these keys will have identical translations, but I don't want to duplicate those. Well, guess what? I can open the clipboard and copy this reference key ID and paste it for the English value in the following way. And it means that this logout value will be referenced from this key. And if, for example, you modify it somehow, then this child key will also be modified. And when you download your translation keys back to your PC, by default, those references will be replaced with the actual translation values. So let's see it in action. I'm going to uncheck this option for now, and let's hit preview. And here is our logout key that contains the actual string. But if for some reason you would like to keep raw references, then you can tick disable referencing. You can hit preview, and this parent key indeed contains the string logout. But as for this key, it contains this reference. So that's the idea of this option. Now, as for replace line breaks with \n, well, it will literally replace the line breaks with this special character. Then you can unescape forward slashes, and you can add a new line at the end of the file if it is supported by the chosen format. Next, you can choose what to do with the empty translations. So you can export as empty strings, or you can ignore those, or you can replace with the base language. Well, that's pretty much obvious. Then you can choose the sorting for your keys on the per file basis, and then you can pick the plural format. Well, it only makes sense for the plural keys, obviously. You can just play around with these formats to see what result works for you. Then as for the placeholder format, once again, we have quite a few options. For instance, with printf, our placeholder for the username will be replaced with this value. By the way, note that here I'm using the so-called universal placeholder that Lokalise supports. This is like a format-agnostic placeholder, but then upon exporting, it will be replaced with the platform-specific placeholder. And depending on the chosen value Here, your placeholder might look differently. Let's choose maybe ICU. Let's hit preview. And now the placeholder looks, well, in a different way. Now the indentation, well, you can pick one of the options. And also it is possible to include other project strings. Well, I mean from other projects that are available within your current team. This feature is useful if you share similar keys over several projects. For example, maybe country names. And if you have chosen some tags to include or to exclude, then this selection will apply to all other included projects. But please note that when you're selecting multiple projects, Lokalise will not filter duplicate keys, and it will only include languages that were selected here. Now, as for the app triggers, well, if you have any apps set up, for example, GitHub or maybe Bitbucket or maybe Amazon, you will see these triggers here. You can find more information in our docs. And finally, there is the webhook trigger. You can add a webhook to notify your web service that a new download has been initiated. Now, when you are ready, you can press build and download. In this case, you will get a zip archive, or you can press build only. In this case, all the app triggers will be executed, but the actual bundle, the actual archive, won't be downloaded to your PC. A small notice for developers that are using the over-the-air feature, I mean the mobile developers. If you would like to build an over-the-air bundle, then make sure to pick one of the SDKs, maybe for example Android, and then you can simply hit build only. And once you do that, you will be automatically navigated to the over-the-air bundles, and here is the new bundle that you can now distribute. You can find more information about over-the-air feature in our developer hub. And now let's briefly see how to download translations for ad hoc documents project. I mean, for the projects that use HTML or docx format, the formats that are non-key based. So here I have my HTML file, and then once again you can navigate to the download page. In this case, you will have only a few options to choose from. Once again, you can pick the language. You can see that there is no file structure option because we cannot somehow regroup our values, but we can filter by the file name. There is only a single advanced setting, what to do with the empty translations, and also there can be a webhook. Now we can hit build and download. Here is my archive, and well, here is my HTML page that I can now utilize in my project. And so this is it. Now we know how to download our translations from Lokalise. Thank you for your attention and happy localizing.